Hi, guys. Welcome to a brand new year. Hi, Paul Kamish. Welcome to a brand new year. This has got to be better than 2020. Uh, and welcome to my channel if you haven't been here before. And welcome to Saturday live stream where I sort of make fun of the Bible. Uh, but first things first, uh, we got to do comment, or I have to do comments of the week. And this week's comment of the week goes to Leisa Irwin on the video Star of the Magi. Truth is the most interesting, though sometimes hard to find when covered by myth. I certainly don't believe in a supernatural impregnation of a virgin, which makes the whole thing pretty sketchy to me. Not that it isn't a nice little story. I prefer to think of the pagan celebrations as more literal. Having food from a harvest and meat from your lamb was more important than spiritual myth, in my opinion. Great point, Lisa. I agree. And then today in history. U.S. Russia détente ends. On January 2nd, 1980, in a strong reaction to the December 1979 Soviet invasion of Afghanistan, President Jimmy Carter asked the Senate to postpone action on the SALT II nuclear weapons treaty and recalled the U.S. ambassador to Moscow. These actions sent a message that the age of détente and the friendlier diplomatic and economic relations that were established between the U.S. and the Soviet Union during President Richard Nixon's administration had ended. Carter feared that the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan, in which an estimated 30,000 combat troops entered that nation and established a puppet government, would threaten the stability of strategic neighboring countries such as Iran and Pakistan, and could lead to the USSR gaining control over much of the world's oil supplies. The Soviet actions were labeled a serious threat to peace by the White House. Carter asked the Senate to shelve ratification talks on SALT II, the nuclear arms treaty that he and Soviet Premier Leonid Brezhnev had already signed, and the president called U.S. Ambassador to Moscow Thomas J. Watson back to Washington for a consultation in an effort to let the Kremlin know that military intervention in Afghanistan was unacceptable. When the Soviets refused to withdraw from Afghanistan, America halted certain key exports to the USSR, including grain and high technology, and boycotted the 1980 Summer Olympics, which were held in Moscow. The United States also began to covertly subsidize anti-Soviet fighters in Afghanistan. During Ronald Reagan's presidency in the 1980s, the CIA secretly sent billions of dollars to Afghanistan to arm and train excuse me, the Mujahideen rebel forces that were battling the Soviets. This tactic was successful in helping to drive out the Soviets, but it also gave rise to the oppressive Taliban regime and Osama bin Laden's Al Qaeda terrorist organization. Way to go, CIA! So, anyway, now for some channel announcements. Oh, yeah, Marianne, just like in the 1936 Olympics that were held in Berlin. Um, um, Generally, when I finish one series, I start with another. You know how I am on my channel. Uh, this year is going to bring some interesting series to my channel. Um, I'm going to be doing missing books of the Bible removed in the 19th century. Some of these removed books are found in the Catholic version of the Bible, but are not found within the Protestant version of the Bible. And some of them are not found in either version of the Bible. So it's going to be very interesting, a very interesting series on that. And I'm also going to be uh, finishing up my uh, witchcraft in Connecticut and start with the Salem witchcraft trials. Not exactly sure the timeline on that. So be patient. I will get there. There's not as much on the Connecticut witch trials as there is on Salem, just because we don't have as much information on the Connecticut trials. I do believe like one of the courthouses burnt down or something. Um, so most of what we have for the Connecticut witch trials has been pieced together from memoirs and, you know, John Winthrop's journal and stuff like that. So, and of course, I'll continue my Saturday live streams with uh, making fun of the Bible. And speaking of Saturday live streams, making fun of the Bible, let's go. We are in Genesis chapter 32. Uh, just for reference, Jacob has left the house of his father-in-law Laban after a very long time. Not that I believe any of this happened, but according to the story. And now we're in chapter 32. Jacob also went on his way, and the angels of God met him. When Jacob saw them, he said, "This is the camp of God." So he named that place Mahanaim. Jacob sent messengers ahead of him to his brother Esau in the land of Seir, the country of Edom. I don't know why it has two separate names. That just doesn't make any sense. Unless one is the Canaanite name and the other is the English name, that would make a bit more sense. Verse 4. He instructed them, This is what you are to say to my lord Esau. So he's basically like, you know what? Grovel at the feet of Esau because I'm afraid he's going to kill me. Your servant Jacob says, I have been staying with Laban and have remained there till now. I have cattle and donkeys, sheep and goats, male and female servants. Now I am sending this message to my Lord that I may find favor in your eyes. Yeah. Uh, you tricked him out of his birthright, and then you stole his blessing, and now you're trying to bribe him. Yeah, old Jacob hasn't changed, has he? And this is supposed to be the good brother, remember? Remember that. This is the one God's chosen. Allegedly chosen. Verse 6. When the messengers returned to Jacob, they said, We went to your brother Esau, and now he is coming to meet you, and 400 men are with him. In great fear and distress, Jacob divided the people who were with him into two groups, and the flocks and herds and camels as well. He thought if Esau comes and attacks one group, the group that is left may escape. Then Jacob prayed to the Lord, O God of my father Abraham, God of my father Isaac, Lord, you who said to me, Go back to your country and your relatives, and I will make you prosper. I am unworthy of all the kindness and faithfulness you have shown your servant. I want to stop there. This is actually in the middle of the verse, but I want to stop there. This is something you will see again and again and again and again and again in the Bible. I am unworthy of your kindness, and I'm a sinner, and blah, blah, blah. Just a minute. Sorry about that, guys. So anyway, I was in the middle of a verse, and like I said, this is something you're going to see again and again and again. And this is the hallmark of an abusive relationship. I beat you because I love you. And then the abused gets so beat down that they're like, well, you know what? I deserve to get beat. So make of that what you will. Verse 10. I am unworthy of all the kindness and faithfulness you have shown your servant. I had only my staff when I crossed this Jordan, but now I have become two camps. Save me, I pray, from the hand of my brother Esau, for I am afraid he will come and attack me, and also the mothers with their children. But you have said, I will surely make you prosper, and will make your descendants like the sand of the sea, which cannot be counted. He spent the night there, and from what he had with him, he selected a gift for his brother Esau. Again, trying to bribe him. Hey, look, I know I stole your birthright and I stole your blessing, but here's some bribery, and hopefully that'll make everything go away. "200 female goats and 20 male goats, 200 ewes and 20 rams, 30 female camels with their young, 40 cows and 10 bulls, and 20 female donkeys and 10 male donkeys. He put them in the care of his servants, each herd by itself, and said to his servants, 'Go ahead of me and keep some space between the herds.' He instructed the one in the lead, 'When my brother Esau meets you and asks, "Who do you belong to? And where are you going? And who owns all these animals in front of you?" then you are to say, "They belong to your servant Jacob. They are a gift sent to my lord Esau, and he is coming behind us." He also instructed the second, the third, and all the others who followed the herds. You are to say the same thing to Esau when you meet him. And be sure to say, "Your servant Jacob is coming behind us." For he thought, "I will pacify him with these gifts I am sending on ahead. Later, when I see him, perhaps he will receive me." So Jacob's gifts went on ahead of him, but he himself spent the night in the camp. That night, Jacob got up and took his 2 wives, his 2 female servants, and his 11 sons, and crossed the ford of the Jabbok. After he had sent them across the stream, he sent over all his possessions. So Jacob was left alone, and a man wrestled with him until daybreak. When the man saw that he could not overpower him, he touched the socket of Jacob's hip, so that his hip was wrenched as he wrestled with the man. Then the man said, "Let me go, for it is daybreak." But Jacob replied, "I will not let you go unless you bless me." Again, very manipulative, but this is the one God chose. Verse 27. The man asked him, "What is your name?" "Jacob," he answered. Then the man said, "Your name will no longer be Jacob, but Israel, because you have struggled with God and with humans and have overcome." Jacob said, "Please tell me your name." But he replied, "Why do you ask my name?" Then he blessed him there. So Jacob called the place Peniel, saying, "It is because I saw God face to face, and yet my life was spared." Note, because I have seen God face to face, and yet my life was spared. But yet, if you believe the Christians, and believe me, oh yeah, Marianne, and God lost. That blows my mind. I always, skipped this. I'm like, no, God didn't lose. God let him win. No, God lost. But anyway, like I've been saying this whole time, there are 2 different gods of at least the patriarchs, who I don't believe existed, and Moses, who may or may not have existed. At any rate, This God is El, and the God of Moses is Yahweh. So, but Christians would have you believe these are the same gods, and they're not. Verse 31, the sun rose above him as he passed Peniel, and he was limping because of his hip. Therefore, to this day, the Israelites do not eat the tendon attached to the socket of the hip, because the socket of Jacob's hip was touched near the tendon. Chapter 33. Jacob looked up, and there was Esau coming with his 400 men. So he divided the children among Leah, Rachel, and the 2 female servants. He put the female servants and their children in front, Leah and her children next, and Rachel and Joseph in the rear. Gee, you aren't playing favorites or anything, are you, Jacob? He himself went on ahead and bowed down to the ground 7 times as he approached his brother. But Esau ran to meet Jacob and embraced him. He threw his arms around his neck and kissed him, and they wept. Then Esau looked up and saw the women and children. Who are these with you? He asked. Okay, Marianne. I'll see you maybe later. Jacob answered, They are the children of God. They are the children God has graciously given to your servant. Verse 6. Then the female servants and their children approached and bowed down. Next, Leah and her children came and bowed down. Last of all came Joseph and Rachel, and they too bowed down. Esau asked, What's the meaning of all these flocks and herds I met? To find a favor in your eyes, my lord, he said. But Esau said, I already have plenty, my brother. Keep what you have for yourself. No, please, said Jacob. If I have found favor in your eyes, accept this gift from me. For to see your face is like seeing the face of God, now that you have received me favorably. Sure, somebody's really going to plead with a brother he hasn't seen in who knows how long, a brother that he basically ran away from because he was afraid Esau was going to kill him. He's going to plead with Esau to accept all these animals, especially in this day and age when who knows how many of your herd are going to survive. Verse 11. Please accept this present that was brought to you, for God has been gracious to me, and I have all I need. And because Jacob insisted, Esau accepted it. Then Esau said, Let us be on our way. I'll accompany you. Let me stop there. You see what they're doing here? The Israelites, and whenever this was written, and this was written way after, you know, it's purported to have been written way after. But you see what they're doing here. They're like, you know what? The Israelites made the Canaanites rich, not the other way around. When in all actuality, the Israelites were an indigenous movement in Canaan. For more information on this, see my Emergence of Israel series. Verse 13. But Jacob said to him, My Lord knows that the children are tender, and that I must care for the ewes and cows that are nursing their young. If they are driven hard just one day, all the animals will die. So let my Lord go on ahead of his servant while I move along slowly at the pace of the flocks and herds before me, and the pace of the children, until I come to my Lord in Seir. Esau said, Then let me leave some of my men with you. But why do that? Jacob asked. Just let me find favor in the eyes of my Lord. So that day Esau started on his way back to Seir. Jacob, however, went to Succoth, where he built a place for himself and made shelters for his livestock. That is why the place is called Succoth. After Jacob came from Paddan Aram, he arrived safely at the city of Shechem in Canaan, and camped within sight of the city. For 100 pieces of silver he bought from the sons of Hamor, the father of Shechem, the plot of ground where he pitched his tent. There he set up an altar and called it El Elohe Israel. Chapter 24. Now Dinah, the daughter of Leah, had born to Jacob, went out to visit the women of the land. When Shechem, son of Hamor, the Hivite, the ruler of that area, saw her, he took her and the R word. I'm not going to say it. Might get demonetized. His heart was drawn to Dinah, daughter of Jacob. He loved the young woman and spoke tenderly to her. And Shechem said to his father Hamor, Get me this girl as my wife. When Jacob heard that his daughter Dinah had been defiled, his sons were in the fields with his livestock, so he did nothing about it until they came home. Then Shechem's father Hamor went out to talk with Jacob. Meanwhile, Jacob's son had come in from the field. As soon as they heard what happened, they were shocked and furious because Shechem had done an outrageous thing in Israel by sleeping with Jacob's daughter, a thing that should not be done. But Hamor said to them, My son Shechem has his heart set on your daughter. Please give her to him as his wife. Intermarry with us. Give us your daughters and take our daughters for yourselves. You can settle among us. The land is open to you. Live in it, trade in it, and acquire property in it. Verse 11. Then Shechem said to Dinah's father and brothers, Let me find a favor in your eyes, and I will give you whatever you ask. Make the price for the bride and the gift I am about to bring as great as you like, and I'll pay whatever you ask. Only give me the young woman as my wife. Because their sister Dinah had been defiled, Jacob's sons replied deceitfully as they spoke to Shechem and his father Hamor. The fruit doesn't fall far from the trees, does it? Verse 14. They said to them, We can't do such a thing. We can't give our sister to a man who is not circumcised. That would be a disgrace to us. We will enter an agreement with you on one condition only, that you become like us by circumcising all your males. Then we will give you our daughters and take your daughters for ourselves. We'll settle among you and become one people with you. But if you will not agree to be circumcised, we'll take our sister and go. Verse 18. Their proposal seemed good to Hamor and his son Shechem. The young man, who was the most honored of all his father's family, lost no time in doing what they said, because he was delighted with Jacob's daughter. So Hamor and his son Shechem went to the gate of their city to speak to the men of their city. These men are friendly toward us, they said. Let them live in our land and trade in it. The land has plenty of room for them. We can marry their daughters, and they can marry ours. But the men will agree to live with us as one people, only on the condition that our males be circumcised, as they themselves are. Won't their livestock, their property, and all their animals become ours? So let us agree to their terms, and they will settle among us. So, there's a bit of double dutch going on here. Verse 24. All the men who went out of the city gate agreed with Hamor and his son Shechem, and every male in the city was circumcised. 3 days later, while all of them were still in pain, 2 of Jacob's sons, Simeon and Levi, Dinah's brothers, took their swords and attacked the unsuspecting city, killing every male. What a cowardly act. And why should it have to be all males? Why can't it just be the offending male? They put Hamor and his son Shechem to the sword and took Dinah from Shechem's house and left. The sons of Jacob came upon the dead bodies and looted the city where their sister had been defiled. They seized their flocks and herds and donkeys and everything else of theirs in the city and out in the fields. Again, you can see what they're doing. Verse 29. They carried off all their wealth and all their women and all their children, taking plunder everything in the houses. Then Jacob said to Simeon and Levi, you have brought trouble on me by making me obnoxious to the Canaanites and Perizzites, the people living in this land. We are few in number, and if they join forces against me and attack me, I and my household will be destroyed. But they replied, should he have treated our sister like a prostitute? Chapter 35. And this is the last chapter for this Saturday live stream. Then God said to Jacob, go up to Bethel and settle there, and build an altar there to God, who appeared to you when you were fleeing from your brother Esau. So Jacob said to his household and to all who were with him, get rid of the foreign gods you have with you, and purify yourselves and change your clothes. Then come, let us go up to Bethel, where I will build an altar to God, who answered me in the day of my distress, and who has been with me wherever I have gone. So they gave Jacob all the foreign gods they had and the rings in their ears, and Jacob buried them under the oak at Shechem. Then they set out, and the terror of God fell on the towns all around them, so that no one pursued them. That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. You're going to bury a bunch of jewelry and people are just going to leave you alone. That doesn't make any sense. Verse 6. Jacob and all the people with him came to Luz, that is, Bethel, in the land of Canaan. There he built an altar, and he called the place El Bethel. Okay, I just want to point out here, El in ancient Canaanite language means God. Beth means house of. So El Bethel literally means God, house of God. Am I the only one who that doesn't make sense to? Because it was there that God revealed himself when he was fleeing from his brother. I would make a sex joke, but that would probably get me demonetized. Verse 8. Now Deborah, Rebekah's nurse, died and was buried under the oak outside Bethel. So it was named Allen Bakuth. After Jacob returned from Paddan Aram, God appeared to him again and blessed him. God said to him, "Your name is Jacob, but you will no longer be called Jacob. Your name will be Israel." So he named him Israel. Uh, God, you must be really, really short on your memory, because you renamed him in chapter 32. So your memory must be really, really short. Verse 11. And God said to him, "I am God Almighty. Be fruitful and increase in number. A nation and a community of nations will come from you, and kings will be among your descendants. The land I gave to Abraham and Isaac, I also give to you, and I will give this land to your descendants after you." Then God went up from him at the place where he had talked with him. Verse 14. Jacob set up a stone pillar at the place where God had talked to him, and he poured out a drink offering on it. He also poured oil on it. Jacob called the place where God had talked with him Bethel. I just got a question. How does Jacob know what a drink offering even is when the Levitical law hasn't even been established yet? This makes no sense. Verse 16. Then they moved on from Bethel. While they were still some distance from Ephrath, Rachel began to give birth and had great difficulty. And as she was having great difficulty in childbirth, the midwife said to her, "Don't despair, for you have another son." As she breathed her last, for she was dying, she named her son Ben-Oni, but his father named him Benjamin. So Rachel died and was buried on the way to Ephrath, that is Bethlehem. Just a minute, guys, and page is stuck. Verse 20. Over her tomb, Jacob set up a pillar, and to this day, that pillar marks Rachel's tomb. Israel moved on again and pitched his tent beyond Migdal Eder. While Israel was living in that region, Reuben went in and slept with his father's concubine, Bilhah, and Israel heard of it. Jacob had 12 sons. You know what, Jacob? You can't do stuff and not expect it not to come back on you. Like I said, not that I believe the story ever even happened, but still. And then they give the lineage of Jacob. It goes from verse 23 to 26, and I'm not going to read that. You can read it. Jacob came home to his father Isaac on Mamre near Kiriath Arba, that is Hebron, where Abraham and Isaac had stayed. Isaac lived 180 years. Then he breathed his last, and he died and was gathered to his people, old and full of years, and his sons Esau and Jacob buried him. No, Isaac did not live 180 years. He might have been old. And old in this day would have been 50, 60 maybe. That would have been old in that day and age. But he did not live to 180. Did not happen. And like I said, I don't believe any of this stuff ever happened anyway. But these years, especially in the beginning of Genesis, they never happened. They just didn't. So, anyway, that's all I have for you today. I have been looking on Patreon. I will be looking on Patreon some more to try to figure out how to do a Patreon account. I'm also going to look into doing something special for my patrons. Probably live streams. And please go to my website. It has merchandise on it. My Teespring store also has merchandise on it. Or if you would like to support this channel, you can go to those two, or you can go to my PayPal link. All links are in the description. So have a great day, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.